And if you do want a bit more education, there is a sale on until tomorrow, end of Q2, end of 30th of June. VTP reduction on the VTP stage 2 swing trading and stage 3 intraday trading. Okay, there's a QR code there or a bit.ly code, or just ping me if you've got questions. Let's bring that down. Okay, so bang, what are we looking at here now? This is just my kind of indices, one of my indice profiles here. So what have I got here? We've got Nasdaq on the not Nasdaq, Dow on the weekly, Nasdaq on the weekly, S&P 500 on the weekly, Russell on the weekly, FTSE on the weekly, Nikkei on the weekly, DAX, and then oil. Okay, so not unsurprisingly. Okay, so I actually need to update that. I think that one on this. This is not my main trading computer I'm on this week. So, let's just see if that needs to be updated. But either way, oil we can see is basically it is working its way lower there, right? Not a massive spice, even with some of the, as I said, some of the shenanigans that we've seen going on over the last here we go, over the last couple of days over the weekend. But yeah, we can see bang. There we are. All right. We're sub 70. I'm still holding there, sub 70 there. Okay. On that. When I look at the indexes, it's kind of an interesting one because what we see here is if I look at, let's bring up the old drawing tool here. If we look at Dow last week, Dow actually, it traded up way up to its highs there. Okay. It closed as a double pin bar, which kind of is curious to me. But then so did the Russell, right? Russell kind of traded higher, okay, and closed higher, right? And we've seen those. Whereas actually, when we look at S&P and Nasdaq, well, they're showing us a very different picture. If I look at S&P 500 here, once again, right, S&P 500 on the weekly, having had a great run there, bang, another bearish engulfing candle, bearish key reversal candle. And then last week we kind of followed it through. We've now that's a lower high there, isn't it? And we had a really bearish close on that. Okay, if we go down to the daily chart, we're sat on the daily 50. See how we are sat on that daily 50. So I'm going to be watching this week. Okay, does that hold? All right, if that holds, okay, well then of course that means maybe we sort of trickle our way into July and August. If it breaks, well, yeah, then I think we've got a little bit of another leg lower on that. Nasdaq. I mean, if we look at the Nasdaq there, okay, same big bullish run up right into this bearish engulfing candle, bearish key reversal candle, followed by almost like this double top here that you can see on the weekly chart. Okay, once again, we're on the daily chart. We're sat here on the 50. All right, we're sat here in the 50, and the 20 started to see how the 20 started to roll its way over. Are we going to get a little bit of a squeeze this week between the 20 and 50 as we get an indication of what's the likely move forward? All right, so naturally we'll be interested to see what goes on there. Remember we've got NFP at the end of this week, so maybe that could be the kind of chrysalis for the start of a new particular move. So yeah, keep an eye on that. A bit closer to home, DAX is also. We've talked about this for a while now. I see DAX really. Every time it tries to get up above 25,000, it kind of fails. It seems to just not want to go any further. Now I'd look at that as kind of pivoting almost around 25,000. Prices here once again. Prices in between the sort of kind of the 20, the 50, 25,000 acting above it, right? What is there going on there that could actually give it a bit of a boost? All right, is there anything really going on there that will move the needle on this? Okay, or is this just us starting to, as I say, trickle into a bit of summer doldrums? FTSE close to home. So I had said that I thought, we were kind of coiling up here on the weekly chart. And I thought maybe, the burning would get us a little bit of traction. Maybe we'd break out of it. Certainly last week, a bit of a bullish close, but I wouldn't exactly, and we're above the 20, but I wouldn't exactly say it's filling me with real joy or desire or drive, is it? I'm just looking at the latest FTSE there. Yeah, there's not really much gone on there. Either way is okay. If I look at it on the daily chart, I respected that kind of trend line, but listen, price is above the 20, it's above the 50, it's above the 200. That is bullish, but I wouldn't exactly say that that is a swing trend that is kind of sort of exciting me and wants me to sort of get on board that. So I think that's a little bit of a watch and shoot on that at the moment. Look at a couple of the couple of the commodities. So gold. Gold is now, we are, last week we kind of trucked down to 4,000. We're beneath that 50, right? We're beneath that weekly 50. And if you look at that, it's, it's a good while. It's a good while, all right, since we were last closing there, right, kind of, nearly 2 years ago and stuff. Well, over 2 years ago. So that's quite some move there. If I look at the daily chart, I was interested to see whether this was going to form like a double bottom, and you might say it is a bit of a double bottom, but clearly 4,000. All right, it's a big round number, isn't it? As clearly there's been some maneuvers off there at the moment. Is that anything for us to carry on with? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But definitely that kind of downtrend, all right. And there's an element of that, the dollar strength kind of playing into that. Same for silver, all right. Silver once again last week. I talked about a couple of weeks ago. We were sat on the 50. Now we've closed beneath the 50, beneath $60. All right. There's nothing. I don't see anything bullish about that. All right. When I look at that on the daily chart, yep, we're just here hovering underneath 60. But there's going to need to be some good moves to basically give us that. Well, a bit of dollar weakness, I'd say, to give us the kind of oomph to move silver higher. And then finally, Bitcoin as well. So we looked at this Bitcoin in the weekly chart. We talked about how, we were just sat on the weekly 200 period moving average. Okay. And was that going to act? You've got 60,000, 200 period moving average. Was that going to be enough to sort of form a base? We certainly bounced off it strongly earlier in the year, but last week we pushed through and we closed beneath the 200 and beneath the 60. Now, technical guys were saying, well, actually, there's nothing bullish about that. Others will be saying, who like to buy a false breakout will be open. Actually, this is a false breakdown, and we're going to, fly to the moon from it. We'll wait and have to see. Yeah, personally, I don't see that price action as massively bullish in the sense of, makes me want to look at this as kind of a failed breakout or a double bottom. I'm quite happy at this moment to look at that as kind of a watch and shoot, all right, and just see if it can build a base above 60 and above 20 period moving average before I get interested in that.